Hey, thanks everyone for joining us today. Welcome to the 31st GDG session. So, we want to talk about the paradigm shift in software development, the rise of GenAI, and its impact on the developer productivity. We'll dive into how this technology empowers developers throughout the software development lifecycle. So, quick introduction I'm Santosh Chennuri. I'm the lead customer engineer working with Google for about 4 years. I work with enterprise customers. Sabre is one of our customers. So I work with all these Sabre folks almost every day. So I work mainly, my focus is on application migrations, modernizations, and driving the DevOps initiatives. Lately, I'm focusing on GenAI, strategically implementing different use cases for enterprise customers and unlocking the new levels of developer productivity. Now I'll let Festus introduce himself.
Thank you, Santosh. So just like Santosh, I'm a customer engineer at Google Cloud, and my specialization is in data and AI. So at Google, I help organizations understand how to use the power of generative AI to drive innovation and create a better customer experience. Talk about chatbots, search applications, and whatnot. Outside of work, I'm a family man. I love spending time with my family, and then I'm a huge fan of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I'm actually looking forward to watching some X-Men 97 tonight. A new episode comes out. So yeah, that's it about me. Next slide, Santosh. All right. So if you ever felt overwhelmed by repetitive coding tasks, endless debugging sessions, or the constant pressure to learn new technologies, don't worry, we see you. We have been there. So in today's session, we'll be exploring how generative AI is poised to change the way we work as developers, right? So here's a quick overview of our agenda, right? So we'll start by talking about developers' pain points, right? We'll begin by acknowledging the common challenges and frustrations that developers face on a daily basis. And then we'll head on to the GenAI revolution, right? We'll introduce GenAI and its potential to address these pain points, highlighting its transformative capabilities, right? And then we'll talk about a day in life of a transformed developer in the area of app and data, right? So we'll then paint a picture of how GenAI can impact your daily workflow, focusing on both app development and then data analysis, right? And then lastly, we won't do any justice to this talk if we don't show you real life, how this works, right? So we're gonna see it in action, and then we'll move beyond just the theory and showcase some real world GenAI tools in action, demonstrating like their practical applications and benefits, right? So now that you have the roadmap for our discussion, I'll pass the presentation on to Santosh, who will delve deeper into exciting world of GenAI from the app mode side. Santosh, the floor is
Awesome.
yours.
Okay. So before we dive in, there were like some sensational headlines in the news recently that generated a lot of excitement. Like AI will write all the code for you in the future, or developers will become redundant, obsolete. Or maybe you also would have heard this. Like there is a AI software engineer dabbing. That's the proof that all the developers will be there won't be any work for the developers. There won't be any developers in 3 to 5 years. So these kind of statements made to the headlines. So is that true? So that's what we're going to explore today. So let us hold on our thoughts for a while. We'll give our perspective at the end, but let us continue with the current state of generative AI and its potential impact on the developer community. So there are several kind of major roadblocks that consistently slow down the development teams. So what are they? Like onboarding the developers, getting the new developers up to speed is a huge time sink. It takes a lot of time to, understand the existing systems, tools, technologies, the processes. Uh, I think because of this reason, some of the companies introduced this buddy concept. So basically, when you join an organization, you will be introduced to a buddy. and that buddy will help you to navigate through these processes. So can GenAI act as your buddy? That will explore. And another major challenge is developers constantly juggle between multiple tasks. Maybe like different projects, or maybe you're working on like a feature request, and then suddenly you get an incident. Or maybe you need to draft a mail like for 15 minutes. Maybe you need to update a Jira entry. So developers always kind of uh, juggle between multiple tasks, between back and forth, and that creates a lot of wasted time and makes it's really hard to ship the code fast. And the next one is high maintenance cost and tech debt. So it's always challenging to maintain a code base which is like 20 years, 30 years old legacy code, or modernizing it. And the next thing is the non-value add, the repetitive task, the mundane, tedious task developers have to uh, continuously do on day-to-day basis. Maybe you're getting stuck with something, you need to kind of research, you need to go to Stack Overflow, understand what is happening. So we will explore can GenAI help in these kind of scenarios. So there are a lot of surveys conducted within Google, outside Google as well. So this is one of the survey from Stack Overflow. So the result is pretty evident. It's constant. Developers wants to use AI in increasing their productivity, or speed up learning, or in enhancing the efficiency. So there is also another survey on how engineers are using AI currently versus how do they want to use AI in future. So currently, mainly most of the developers are using AI for code generation, debugging, but in future they also want to use it for like documentation or test cases, or maybe managing the products, or maybe in the DevOps, like deploying um, and operations as well. So there was one interesting study conducted by one of our customers, Wayfair. So what they did is they have taken like 30 developers, divided them into two groups. One group with GenAI access, the other group without GenAI access, and then they have been given um, certain tasks to complete within specific time. So at the end of the timeline, what is evident is the group with which has GenAI access was able to outperform the other group. So pretty much like they were able to spin up the environments very fast, like 55% faster. And then they had high test unit test coverage. And also 60% of the developers reported they were productive and they did the satisfying work. So it's quite evident that with GenAI can help developers in improving their productivity. So GenAI revolution, the impact of GenAI, imagine that kind of impact electricity or the steam engine or the internet or the mobile had on us. So generative AI will have the similar impact on us. It's already started. So it might change the world in a ways we can't even imagine. So I want to focus on three takeaways for this session. First one is democratizing AI. So there was a tweet um, that went viral when GenAI was introduced like a year and a half ago. The most powerful programming language is English, right? So you can just interact with the LLM in natural language, and then it can generate the code or explain the code or whatever you want to do it. So this is basically kind of power of the natural language or democratizing AI. And the second thing is GenAI is everywhere. So basically, whether you're working on your favorite IDE like Visual Studio Code or JetBrains IntelliJ IDE, or you're working on something like cloud-based workstation. We have Google Cloud Workstation, which is you get everything in the browser kind of Visual Studio kind of experience. Or you're working on the Google Cloud Console, you have GenAI to help you um, assist you in case of any issues or any questions. And GenAI is for everyone, basically not only for the developers, maybe database engineers or SRE engineers or DevOps, or security engineers or networking engineers. It's pretty much everywhere. So you can interact with the LLMs in the natural language. Maybe it's about a vulnerability, about a bug, about incident, it can provide you the answers right away. So it's there in every phase. When you take design, when you are creating a flowchart or diagram, or you want something like a API specifications for your service, GenAI can help you. Or maybe building and testing, the code generation part, or generating the test cases, or deploying part. Maybe you're developing a Kubernetes manifest, or maybe Helm charts, or maybe Prometheus YAML files. So this can help you anywhere, and even operate as well. Assume you got an incident and you need to analyze. So using GenAI, what you can do is you can create a knowledge database of all the existing incidents. And then if you get a new incident, you can quickly check if this incident is similar to any of the incidents previously and how previous incidents were solved. And then maybe you can use the same remediation steps to resolve this incident as well. So things like that, you can do it very easily. And when you're scaling up your workloads, so there is always you want to reduce the operational cost. GenAI can provide you some recommendations or best practices using which you can always reduce the cost associated with your infrastructure. Day in the life of a developer. So where can you use GenAI? So as I say, like code generation, code completion, documentation, testing, or maybe you want to refactor, or you want to change your legacy code or migrate from your legacy code to modern code. GenAI can help you. So typical DevOps or GitOps CI/CD pipeline. So what happens in a traditional way without GenAI? So basically, you have a GitHub repository, you clone it, you download it to local, and then you create a feature branch, you start working, and then you check in, and the job gets triggered. It does unit testing, and then you raise a pull request, architect approves, and then you deploy it to dev, QA, stage, and prod. With GenAI, with LLM powered, this we can streamline this SDLC, or we can streamline the CI/CD pipeline. The CI/CD pipeline becomes so powerful that a lot of tasks can be delegated to the LLMs. So things like you got a new code base, so you need to kind of understand. So GenAI can help you explain that code base to you. And second thing is there is a legacy code, and you want to modernize it. There also GenAI can help you. It can generate the test cases, it can debug the issues. And another powerful feature is a pull request review. So you have raised a pull request, and then GenAI can help you review the request. So imagine this kind of situation. You have like a 10-member team, and one of them is architect. And then these 9 developers, every day they work on different features. There is a pull request. And this architect or the lead, he has to review all the pull requests manually, one by one, to make sure the convention is correct, that the best practices are followed, etc., etc. So that's a kind of a tedious task. So here, GenAI can help you by reviewing that as part of the CI/CD pipeline itself. So that we're going to show in the demo, see in the demo. So where can we use GenAI? When I say GenAI, I'm specifically talking about Google's Jet AI, but this technology is available in other clouds as well. There are some differentiator with respect to Google Cloud, but this is kind of it can be used in other hyperscalers as well. So when it comes to Google's Jet AI, it's available everywhere pretty much, like Visual Studio Code, or you're using Slack or using Jenkins, you can create a chatbot that can help you answer the questions. And I wanted to show 2 demos specifically if we can divide that software development into 2 types. One is inner loop, the other is the outer loop. Inner loop is basically where developers start coding, understanding the code bases, developing the features, and writing the test cases. When it comes to outer loop, we deploy, create the CI/CD pipelines, pull request reviews, and then we release the software. So there is one of the great demo which was developed by some of my Google colleagues, Chris and Andrew. I'm going to show that. So that is like, how can we use LLMs to pull request review? How can we use them within the CI/CD pipeline? So assume you have a CI/CD pipeline currently, and then there are foundation LLMs. With just 3 lines of code, you can integrate those LLMs into your CI/CD pipeline so that when a job is triggered, automatically all the code which is committed will be reviewed, and then you can get the recommendations on the console, whether you're using Jenkins or GitHub or GitLab Actions or whatever. That we're going to see in the demo. And also, they developed a Chrome extension that's like even before you raise a pull request, you want your code to be reviewed by LLM, that you can just do it by clicking on that button, and then you can provide your code, and it will provide you the recommendations. And it can provide the release summaries as well. And another important thing about GenAI or Duet AI is customizing LLMs with your own data. For example, you are in a healthcare or financial organizations where privacy is a concern. You do not want to use the code from external GitHub repositories. Maybe you have like thousands of repositories available locally, and you want when you request LLM has to generate the code from your own code repositories, not from the external repositories. So that you can do. You can customize. You can fine tune your models to generate the code from your own private code repositories. So let us start with a demo, and then we'll see. We'll go to the data part by Festus. So this is the architecture, nothing fancy, a simple three-tier web application I want to build. It should have a UI, it should have an API, and it has a database layer. It's a kind of a names inventory. Um, so to create that kind of application, I need to first provision the infrastructure, whether you are using a Cloud Run or GKE or a VM. First, we need to provision that. So I need to write some Terraform code. Then I need to write some Python code for UI and the API, and then some SQL code for the database. And then I need to prepare my environment, meaning I need to deploy Helm charts. I need to have an ingress controller. I need to deploy Istio. So for all that, I need to develop the YAML files. So let us see how can GenAI help in building this application. So as I said, like we need to create the platform, we need to create the application and deploy it, and then we need to have Cloud SQL and CI/CD. So let me stop sharing this screen, and then let me start sharing my Visual Studio Code. Let me know if you're able to see my Visual Studio. So how do we enable GenAI on my Visual Studio Code locally? So let us say you are a developer, you started working on Visual Studio Code, you have installed it locally. It's a just three-step process. So first thing is we need to buy the subscription from Google for Duet AI license. And once that is done, if you go to extensions, there is something called Google Cloud Code. This we need to install. Once this is installed, and a API has to be enabled in the project, and once those three steps are done, you will see Duet AI in the bottom right corner, and then you will see your project on the bottom left corner. So once these are done, you are good to go. Now you are ready to interact with the LLMs. You're ready to prompt LLM and get the outputs. So let me start by creating a new file. So now I need to create the infrastructure for deploying my application. So I'll start with infra.pf, which is a Terraform file. So I'll just create a new file, and then I start writing the prompt. So I hope you're able to see my screen. So I hope the font is also fine. Let me know if you're not able to see. But what I'll do is I'll simply start writing the code prompt. So basically generate Terraform code to create. It's automatically trying to complete, but I don't want that. I want to create a GKE cluster with GKE cluster in US Central 1 region, and then I can just it trying to automatically generate the code. Either you can accept it or you can ask it to generate it. If you just select it, if you just do a Control A, And then there is a magic button on the right hand side. If you just click on it, and then you will get three options. You want to explain the code, generate the unit test case, or generate the code. So if you just click on generate the code, it will generate the code for you. And then once the code is generated, you can accept it by pressing tab, right? So I just said generate Terraform code to create a GKE cluster in US Central 1 region. So the location is selected as US Central 1A. All the other options are chosen as default. So if you provide more options, it will create the cluster with those options. For example, name is GKE cluster 1 or with 5 node pools. Each node pool should have like a 3 nodes. And then you can just say Control A and then click on this magic button and then generate the code. Let us see if it will generate the code. And then if you just press tab, it's like accepting. Now you see the cluster name is changed to US Central 1. Node count is 5, and then there are the node pools created, and each node pool has 3. And then I did not specify the machine type, that's why I selected the default one. So this way, it provides you kind of a boilerplate syntax, then you can start working on top of it. It may not be 100% correct, but it will provide you something to start with. And then if you just click on Control A, and there is a bulb appearing here, and if you just click on it and then say generate unit test cases, for this Terraform code, it will generate the unit test cases. Just click on this, and there is a chart bar appears on the left hand side, and then you see GenAI in action. It says GenAI is working. So it generated some of the unit test cases. Let us see. So basically, there are some assertions to validate the cluster name, the node count, etc., etc. And you can also interact with that. You can kind of, I want to generate unit tests for Terraform. What frameworks are available? So you can just interact with it and ask questions, and it tries to answer. So it says there are multiple unit test frameworks you can use: TerraTest, Ulumi Test, or Go Test, etc. And then you can, based on that, you can ask like, using this framework, can you generate me the unit test cases? So this is about infrastructure. For example, I want to develop my application, so I'll just create another file, and I'll just say frontend.py, and then I'll just create a file. And now I want to use Python to um, create a web front end. So you can, when you are providing the prompt, you can be as descriptive as possible so that it generates the proper prompt. For example, I'll give you an example of a detailed prompt. So you can also set the context, like you are a cloud developer with expert level skills on GCP. So now you're telling the LLM to generate the code with expert level of skills, and then you're asking to create a web page using the Python Flask framework that has two fields like first name and last name. And then again, you just say Control A and then generate the code. So this will generate the code for a web application. It has the first name and last name. You see, it's almost there. It's almost generated the code. And you can be descriptive, like you want to have a GCP security manager. You want to have username and password, and then you can give whatever the prompt you want, and it will follow that and generate the code. Maybe this is the front end. Now I want to, and you see, it is also giving the recitation checks. So these are like, this code is generated from this particular GitHub repository. It is licensed by this, and then you want to use with caution, some kind of warnings it will provide. So it does like 46 recitation checks. Now, let us say I want to generate an API, and then I'll just clear this, and then say you are again a cloud developer with expert skills. I want to generate an API. that API should take inputs from the web app, and then it should write to the um, database. And the database has a username and password, which is like DB user and password. And these username and password are stored in GCP Secret Manager. And then if I just click on it and then again say generate code, so this will generate the code for the API. So this basically it has pretty good knowledge on the GCP services. So when you are interacting with GCP services, when you need some API specifications, you can always use GenAI. So this is about the Python API or the Terraform code. Now let us say I want to generate the unit test cases for this. Again, I'll just say generate the unit test cases, and then it will go ahead and then use some framework and then generate the test cases. Mostly it will be like it will check if there's a 200 error code, 200 code response, and some assertions, whether it is accepting the first name and last name. Or you can be kind of descriptive and ask, can you generate some complex unit test cases like testing the boundary conditions? Can you generate it? Can you generate some complex automated unit test cases? And then it, based on your input, it will generate some more unit test cases. So the more context, the more examples you give to the LLM, the better output it will provide. So now you see there are a lot of other different test cases, and then you see it is giving last name as null. So it is trying to see if the web application will accept some boundary conditions. So I think it's doing pretty good job uh, to start with in terms of unit test case or code generation. And now, assume you want to kind of you're done with creating the platform, creating the application, deploying this and Docker file, and then you upload it to artifact registry. Now, let us say I want to create a manifest, the GKE manifest, gke.yaml, and then create a new file. And now I'll say create a service with this image and then this port, or maybe ingress controller or Istio, etc. You can give, and then based on that, it will generate that particular YAML file. Again, you're a cloud architect with expert skills on GCP and Terraform. Can you generate a Helm chart where ingress controller takes global static IP as an input? And then again, I'll just say Control A and then generate unit test cases. Sorry, generate the code. So this has created a ingress controller YAML file that has the backend as service and then ports and etc. So basically, on top of this, you can develop your own deployment, pod, service, image, and then start working on it. So this is about the first part, inner loop. So now let me go to the next part, which is the outer loop. Now let us say I want to check in this code. I want this pull request to be reviewed by the LLM. So let me go to the other code. So there is GitLab ci.yaml. So I'm using GitLab as the repository and also as a CI/CD tool. Now, if I want my LLM to review my code with my checking, I just need to add these 3 lines. And these 3 lines are like review the code, code review, performance review, and security review. So this is like you're shifting the security left. So when you just check in the code automatically, when the job is triggered, this pipeline uh, will send that code as a context to the LLM, and then LLM will analyze the code, review the code, and it will provide the recommendations on the console. So just for testing, let me do a dummy check-in and then see if it's working fine. So I'll just go ahead and then create something here, testing, and then save it, and then I'll just go ahead and then add it. Test checking. Git push. So I just need to provide my username and password. So this is checked in. Let me stop sharing this and then share my GitLab. So this is my test project, and then there is a build job, and there are jobs running. And then you see this is started just a while ago. And then just if I click on it, once this is completed, it should show the automated pull requests by the LLMs. And now this Jet is powered by Gemini. So Gemini is one of the best models. So the quality is drastically improved with inclusion of Gemini for Duet. So let us see if this will provide the recommendations for the code review. So meanwhile, I'll also show the other thing. So this is when you commit it, the job automatically does the pull request. And you see the job is succeeded. There is a security review that is completed, and then there is a code review, and there is a performance review. So this way, it kind of, your architect lead doesn't have to manually review everything. The LLM does the code review for you. And even before that, if you want the LLM to review your code, even before you check in, there is a Chrome extension which my team has developed. And then if I just click on it and then enter the code, and then you can enter the whatever the code here, and then just click on review. So this will make a call to the API, the LLM, and then the LLM will review the code, whatever you paste here, whatever you copy paste from your repository or when you're working, and then it will provide you the recommendations. So this is pretty powerful because your entire CI/CD pipeline is doing your code review. You're able to generate the code. You're able to generate the documentation. You're able to kind of even analyze the logs. So like this, there are hundreds of features available in Duet. So in terms of networking, security, databases, and there are a lot of features coming as well. So there are a lot of announcements are expected in Google Cloud Next, which is happening on next month 9th. So this way, I think GenAI or Duet AI helps developers in becoming more productive. So this is about my demo, and then now Festus will show you the data side or data part of it.
Thank you, Santosh. Just go ahead and share my screen. Too many. All right. So now we're going to shift gears and dive into um, another domain where Gen AI is making waves, which is data analysis, specifically in SQL generation. So sort of similar to what Santosh did. We're going to walk through how you can use Gen AI to do similar stuff in SQL. Uh, so a quick note here. So aside from supercharging your productivity, right, which the point we're trying to drive today, GenAI offers opportunity to democratize data analysis and make it accessible to everyone without knowing SQL knowledge, right? So let's say you're a SQL developer, you're a manager, and or you maybe C-level suite, and you want to dive into some data analysis. You don't need to go take a SQL course. You know, you have GenAI, right? All right. Let's meet Boaz, right? So Boaz is a data analyst who loves creating insightful visualizations, right? However, his SQL skills are still somewhat of like work in progress, right? So he's responsible for generating insights for various teams, but sometimes he struggles with complex queries and new data sets, right? He could employ, uh, um, and so he could employ an out-of-the-box approach like Duet AI, or he could do like a do-it-yourself approach where Santosh mentioned using RAG, right? And for this presentation, for this talk track, we'll go with the out-of-the-box approach using Duet AI. All right. So enter Duet AI, right? Boaz's new secret weapon for conquering the SQL battlefield, right? And this is available out of the box in BigQuery. Uh, BigQuery is GCP's or Google Cloud Platform's enterprise data warehouse offering. So let's explore how generative AI tools empower Boaz and countless other developers, right? And the first thing we'll talk about is SQL completion, right? So imagine Boaz, he's racking his brain trying to recall specific syntax for a function, right? We've all been there. Duet AI, powered by Google's Gemini, comes to his aid. It offers contextual suggestions for completing statements and filling in functions and keywords. And it's sort of like having like AI-powered autocomplete for your SQL editor, right? Saving you time and preventing frustrating errors. In the area of SQL generation, right, in another scenario, Boaz needs to query a new data set, right? But he lacks familiarity with its structure. No problem. He simply describes what he needs to do in plain English, and then Do it AI to translate his request into a SQL query. And this is particularly helpful for beginners who or when dealing with complex data structures, right? What about SQL generation iteration, right? Same data analyst here. Boaz generated some query. He's on the right track. He used GenAI to generate that query, but he needs to do some adjustments. He adds comments like filter out null values or round the decimal points, right? GenAI or Do It AI in this case iterates on the query, refines it to his exact specification. And this iterative process allows for quick and precise query building, right? So uh, the previous query is passed into Do It AI as context. And as you know, LLMs work with context, and so it's able to use that and then refine the code. On the last scenario, SQL explainability, right? So Boaz inherits some code from a colleague. I mean, I've been in that situation before. I believe everyone has, but its purpose and logic are super unclear. And so, Do It AI can analyze the code, provide a clear, natural explanation of what the query does and how it works. And this is invaluable to invaluable for understanding legacy code, deciphering complex logic, and even learning new SQL concepts, right? So to drive the point home here, we see that by leveraging generative AI, developers like Boaz experience a significant boost in their productivity. They can write SQL code faster, more accurately. They can understand complex queries with ease and even learn new concepts through AI-powered explanations, right? And this translates to faster insights, improved collaboration, and ultimately a better data-driven decision, right? Generative AI is transforming the way we work with data, making SQL more accessible and empowering developers of all skill levels, right? So if whether you're new to SQL or somewhat of a beginner, you don't need to go take a advanced SQL class. If you have some SQL knowledge, you can use Do It AI, and it has knowledge of how to generate SQL syntax, right? So I'll shift my screen here. We won't be doing justice to this if we don't show how it works. Let me just share my screen over here. All right, awesome. Let's kick it off. So yeah, so if you're not familiar, this is BigQuery, Google Cloud's Google Cloud's enterprise data warehouse. So on the side here, you can see all the artifacts like tables, data sets, and then in here is kind of where you develop your SQL code. So this is where you write your select, start, blah, 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 right? All right. So in here, you can see that I have a prompt here, just as we call it in LLMs. And the prompt is saying, in this project, in a specific project, so the project is kind of the workspace that we're in the GCP environment, it's pointing to a specific data set, which is do it AI prompt, and saying to a specific table, the ask is find the longest trip distance, right? So what's happening here is with just this natural language, do it AI is able to understand exactly what table to go and exactly what scripts to use to generate this, right? So I click enter here, and it'll think, and it gave me what you call it, a very super simple code to do this, right? Now this is a simple use case. Let's go to another one, right? Second one here, it says similar here, right? And if you realize that, I went I went out of my way to point to exactly what project and what data set to use, right? You can use it without it, but the only thing is you want in your prompt you want to be as specific as possible, um, and then that way the SQL the LLM doesn't hallucinate, right? So you want to be as specific as possible, just to help it generate the right code, right? The other thing to point out here is that I said find the first inception date, right? The inception date is not a column in any table, right? It's just a business term, right? So a lot of organizations have different business terms that mean different things, right? And in this scenario, inception date means that the first time. Okay, so just take a step back. The tables that we're using here is tables that's the back end for a ride sharing app. So think of the Ubers, the Lyfts, and whatnot, right? And so the inception date here means the first time that a particular rider took a ride, right, on whether it's Uber or not, right? So somehow the AI is able to understand this, and then it generates it for me, right? So it says select min pickup time, gives it an alias, and then it gives the table to come from, right? And the reason it's able to do this is because in the table we've provided descriptions of each column, and it's using the descriptions as context, passing the context into the prompt before sending it to the model. Right. All right, a few more examples here. Same thing here in the project data set. I say join the trip and payment type tables, show the highest total amount by payment, type description in the payment type table for specific driver ID equal to 1, right? So what I do here is I press enter. The AI does exactly what it does. It's thinking. Let me go back because I don't think it got it. Right. All right. So I press tab here and I accept it. So you can see here, I didn't tell Duet AI exactly what columns to join on. If you're familiar with SQL, you do know that if you create a join, you need to have a join key, right? So I didn't tell Duet AI what join keys to use, but it was able to figure it out using the metadata in the backend, right? Okay. All right. The next is SQL code completion, right? So if you focus your attention on the screen here, you see that I have sort of like a half-written code. I'm selecting from a table. I have an inner join, but I don't have the join condition, right? So now if I go to the end and start typing, right, Duet AI is able to use half the code written as context and is able to complete the code for me, right? So that's the very simple use cases, and that's the whole idea, right? That GenAI is supposed to make life simple for developers, not take over. Jumping into here, I see we have this very long-winded code, right? I don't know if anybody would ever have time to go through this code and understand what it's doing. You can if you want to, but if you have lots of Jira tasks and other things to do, features to develop, you don't want to spend the time trying to understand what this is doing, right? And so this code is handed over to you, and then you're asked to make modifications to it, right? But you don't really know what it's doing. What you can do is you can highlight the code. Sorry, wrong highlight. And then you can scroll down. You should have a magical, what do you call it, button here, and it'll explain the code for you. So if you look on the right, you see that it's thinking, it's parsing the code, sending the code as context. All the metadata it needs is passing as context, and it's trying to figure out what exactly this code is doing, right? And so you can see here, it explains exactly what this code is doing and all the different like columns and tables and stuff that I use and how they are relevant in this table, right? So, instead of having to read through SQL code, you're actually reading through English, right? Not having to read through SQL, right? Next point, let me clear this chart here. Right. So aside from what we have here in BigQuery, where you can type the prompts in where you write your code, there's also let me minimize it. Right, if you click on there's a chat button, and on that chat button you can actually ask questions. Right, so let me get an example of a question and then type it in there just to see how that works. Right, so you can actually put your prompt in where you write your code as well as where you in the chat as well, right? Okay. So I have a prompt here. I'll just copy and paste, so it's super quick. So here we're saying find the max trip distance in a specific project data set, and I'm saying explain SQL. Explain your answer using SQL, right? That, and then it thinks. So it generates the code for me. I don't see the answer, but yes, so it generates the code for me. It explains what the code is doing, and then voila, there you go, right? So let me try one more example, and then we'll just wrap up, right? So for this particular one, I actually gave specific instructions to follow, right? So I'm saying here, write a SQL to find the driver's name who has the highest total amount based using the following points, right? I put in the project data set. I gave it the tables to use, and I said use the following pattern for tables in the form of in the from clause project dataset table, right? And do not prefix the from clause with projects, right? So enter that. It's thinking. Okay, so it generates the SQL query, which you can copy and paste. You can just copy it and paste in where your developer environment, and then you can look at the explanation, right? So this really works for folks who are somewhat familiar with the tables that exist and what data exists in them, and then uh, but don't know how to really phrase their SQL, right? And the idea here is to show how Do It AI is able to use the available tables, columns, and then descriptions as context and passes that out alongside the prompt and then generates a SQL for you, right? So yeah, this wraps up the end of the demo, and just to drive the point here is, Do It AI or Gen AI, it is here to stay. You've seen the buzz. It's here to assist developers. In my opinion, it's not going to take over because there are situations where, at least for now, Gen AI will generate wrong code, and so you have to always verify, especially if you're moving code to production. Right? So at least for now, maybe in the near future, it'll get extremely 100% well. But for now, you always need a human in the loop, right? So I'll pass it on to Santosh to see if he has any closing remarks before we start to finish.
Yeah, thanks, Festus. Circling back on the concerns about the AI, like will AI replace developers? I think I ought to give a kind of analogy. Like when calculator was invented, people thought all the accountants will lose the job, but that did not happen. It actually made accountants more productive. Maybe some accountants lost the job because they did not learn how to use the calculator. I think in the similar analogy, AI will make the developers more productive. I think we need to start learning AI to become more productive. I think that's my perspective.
All right. This is a whirlwind of information kind of across that whole software development lifecycle. It's not just writing code, but you can do unit tests. You can get into the data side and have uh, Chat GPT or Duet AI or Copilot. Although we would prefer Duet AI here for our helper. When you're writing out the prompts, do you ever get the feeling? Do you ever do a prompt before a prompt? It's like when you're trying to write a paper and you just have a blank screen in front of you. You're like, what should I write? Is there? Do you ever have trouble coming up with those prompts to ask the model, or how do you think through those things?
Yeah, I can take this one. For me, if coming up with the prompts can be challenging, but you can ask the AI itself, right? Hey, I'm trying to do this. Can you come up with some sample prompts for me, and it'll generate a prompt for you, right? So it's sort of meta, but yeah, it works. Yeah.
Uh, just want to add one point. Like the more information you give to the LLM, I mean, it's all about prompt engineering. The LLM gives the better output. So I know for some of the use cases in Sabre, we use like 2 pages prompt. So it's like you give a lot of information, examples, this is how it should work, and then a lot of data, template, and all that stuff, then it provides the right answer. And for example, you are converting from Java 7 to, let us say, latest Java, and then you are developing a prompt. Then what you probably need to give is the Java old user guide, the Java new user guide, and then some of the code samples which you have already converted and they're working fine, and those examples. So with that, I think it does a pretty good job of migrating the code, or modernizing the code. And then with Gemini 1.5, you have like a 1 million token
Yeah.
context length. So it can pretty good analyze the huge code bases and then generate the code.
Yeah, I just thought of something. Another thing is you can actually, like, even when you're asking like the LLM how to come with a prompt, you can also put in your thought process, right? And your thought process, maybe you may not know what to write the prompt, but your thought process may be clear. Like, I want to do this, then I want to do this, then I want to do this, right? And it could be like in not even correct syntax English, and it will still like be able to figure it out.
All right, there was a question in the chat from Joydeep Mitra. What are your thoughts on such tools as I just scrolled down on me on teaching software engineering? Are there some good ways to integrate LLM-based software development into educational settings? Have you thought of had a chance to think through those, or maybe you've heard of others at Google or other places that are doing that?
Not specifically, but I think it's possible because for like if you think, for example, like a RAG, right? You ground your queries to a specific domain or a specific knowledge base. So and so you can have whatever materials you're trying to teach in that knowledge base, uh, uh, and then it'll be grounded to that. Yeah, at least that's what I can think of. But I know it's possible, but I haven't seen anything as such right now that exists. It might be out there somewhere, or maybe some startup is creating it somewhere. Yeah,
It's probably there somewhere.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's probably there. Yeah.
There are some use cases like creating some content, audio, video, based on the prompts, and then maybe use it for onboarding the new employees. It's like if you generate the content in one language and then GenAI can convert it to different languages. So you don't have to do it in multiple times. You do it once and use multiple times. I think we started working on those kind of use cases, but nothing concrete yet.
Yeah, Festus mentioned maybe some startup has it somewhere. I do have to do a quick plug for a company called Plug and Play, because they're just moving into McKinney and Frisco here in the DFW area. They are creating an AI vertical, a FinOps vertical, and a sport technology vertical here to basically invest and promote startups, which I need to introduce you guys to. So help me remind remind me to do that. Looking down through the chats, how to deploy fine-tuned LLM models for inference. Any suggestions? It's the first part. From a student perspective, it can be expensive to play with these things. So yeah, anyways, to do fine tuning LLMs free, where would you, what recommendations would you have for people who are trying to get into this, but maybe don't have a lot of money to experiment?
Yeah, the last time I fine tuned a model on GCP, I think it cost me like $10. It wasn't big, so I know in GCP Google Cloud Platform, we recommend if you're doing fine tune about 500 to about 1,000 examples. I use 500 examples just to fine tune to a specific task, and it was about $20-$30. It wasn't that expensive. And the thing about fine tuning in GCP is you don't need to do any coding, right? It's right in the UI. I don't know if you have time, but it's when you go into Vertex AI offering, which is where you can, or Model Garden, which is where you can find all the LLMs available. I think we have about 130 open source LLMs and Google native LLMs in Model Garden. There's an option to fine tune these models, and it's just a button you click, you upload your 500 examples or data set, and it does the fine tuning for you at a very cheap price.
Yeah, for students, I think when you create the GCP account, you get $300 credit. You can use that to kind of play with it, provision the VMs or fine tuning. And also we have something called Quick Labs. I think that if you log in with the student ID, I think that's free to play with. You can try this. So Quick Labs is QWIK Labs.
All right. I think Santosh and Festus, I'll collect some of those links on education and learning, and I'll include those in the wrap up for this. So stay tuned.
Yeah,
if
and
you're
Jim,
looking for those.
I wanted to add that I think I already typed it in the chat space, but Do It AI is currently free till May 11th. So you can go in and just like Santosh is saying, once you sign up for GCP environment, you have like some credits to play around. But for now, Do It AI is free until May 11th. And next 2 weeks, we have Cloud Next, Google Cloud Next. We're going to release some new features and announce some new amazing features on Do It AI. So stay tuned.
I've looked through the list of. They won't give their list of the announcements, but the list of speakers at Google Cloud Next, which is Google's big cloud conference for the year. I think just mental notes. I think like 60% of the sessions have something with Gen AI, LLMs, AI. So even parts of cloud and parts of things that you wouldn't think that AI would be associated, it's there. So it'll be exciting to see what comes out in the announcements. All right, scrolling back through, there's one about the prompt engineering. Like Mohammed Azam noticed that you were telling in the prompt that you were expertise level, or you're adding the expertise level. Like what happened? Like what does that control, and what happens if you don't specify like an expertise level? Any? Do you guys know what it's doing?
I think you're on mute, Santosh.
So I think when you specify with the expert level skill, I think it generates the code with that expertise, high expertise. So initially, when LLMs were introduced, I attended one of the sessions, and then the speaker, who was like a product manager from Google, he said, just by adding please in your prompt, can you please generate versus can you generate will make the difference.
Okay, so I guess we'll all have we've all had a lifetime of interactions with words. Now we need to figure out which words get the right thing from the model. Hopefully, it's not like a magical incantation, but something that can be learned. All right, scrolling back through. I know we've had you guys for about an hour on the presentation and Q&A. If you didn't hear it at the beginning, we do have a break and then a virtual networking session after this. I'm glad we had two people on this one to be able to answer questions in the chat as we've gone along. I'll probably start winding down here, even though there's still some things in the chat. Maybe we can hold them over to the optional next section. But I do have one question for both of you. It's a non-technical question. I ask all the presenters, and it's more of a career development question. So if you had to give advice to a young up-and-coming technologist, maybe they're not even a technologist, but a young person, 20-year-old, still in school. We do have some college students here. I thought I saw maybe some master's students on here. Any career advice that you would give to maybe a young Festus or a young Santosh or a young person coming up? Anyone feel compelled to go first on this one?
Yeah, I can start. What I'll say is put yourself out there as much as possible. Take advantage of opportunities. I know I did. I mean, in the beginning, if you're in school, I assume maybe you have more time than maybe somebody more in the professional world. But yeah, put yourself out there. Take advantage of opportunities. Meet new people. You never know who is going to introduce you into like the next thing that you love. And so so those two things. Yeah, put yourself out there, and then take advantage of opportunities.
Yeah.
Great. Santosh, what do you think?
I just want to add one thing. I agree. Like in the initial phase of career, changing the companies might help. For example, first 5 years, you change 5 companies and you decide which company is good, and then you go back to that company and settle down. That's one approach. Another thing is I wanted to add is like be curious, learn more. It's not just like learning by watching the videos or reading the blogs, but try hands-on, something like labs, big labs. Try those labs, and certifications is another way. Eugene explains that pretty well. So do the certification, at least one certification, maybe Google Cloud Architect or AWS Cloud Architect is a really good one to get a kind of overall idea of how cloud works, and then take advantage of the currently hype technology. For example, 5 years back there was Kubernetes, so everybody was behind Kubernetes. Everybody wanted to learn. Now it's all GenAI. So take the advantage of the hype and get into some good company and then get some learning, good experience.
All right. No, that's great. I think, and there's lots of great action happening in the chat. Links being shared. I'll try and remember to collect the links and share them with everybody. Get some learning links from Festus and Santosh as well. The recording will be up usually by Monday. Oftentimes a lot sooner than that. So if you didn't get to catch the beginning, you can go back, watch the recording on 2x. Just come to the event page, scroll to the bottom. It does link out to YouTube, so you can share it. You share it with others that you think might be interested in learning on this topic. So we'll close out this first part. Thank you everybody for joining. Thank you Santosh and Festus for putting this together. Really appreciate it. It was great.